Let's take a look at example 1, parts A and B. So in this example, they've given us a table of x values with outputs f of x and g of x for two different functions. So recall that when we find the inverse of a function, we're going to exchange the domain, the set of x values, and the range, the set of y values. And in fact, if we were to think about y equals f of x, in order to solve this equation for x, we would need to take the inverse of both sides. And so doing that, we get the inverse of y is equal to, and the inverse, f inverse of f of x is just equal to x. So looking at these tables down here, it could initially be confusing about what values I need to put where. But since in this case we're taking the inverse of x, now what is x? Well, remember, it's a y value. So I'm going to be taking the inverse of the y values associated with f. And so let me take these y values and put them here for x and use them as inputs for my inverse. Notice I've just exchanged the domain and the range. Now, what is the inverse of 2? Well, it's 3. The inverse of -1 is 1. And the inverse of 4 is -1. Take a moment right now, pause the video, and go ahead and complete the same table for B, and we'll check and see how you did. All right, let's take a look at part B. So again, in this expression, we're going to put values of x. So in this table, again, our x values are actually y values. They're going to be the inputs for the inverse function. And so we're going to begin with values of g of x for x. So what is the inverse of -1? Well, it's 3. And the inverse of 0 is 1. And the inverse of 3 is -1.